Welcome to Kenyan Dog Tales. This week we celebrated the World Diabetic Day. Indeed, on Monday, 14th, was World Diabetic Day. It reminded me of a patient I treated many years ago. Most young people will not know the nightmare that we faced. One Saturday morning, very early in the morning, when we had terrorist bombing of the American embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. A lot of lives were lost. Indeed, 224 people died. Now, those of us who are so far from the town just saw billows of smoke, and we knew something was happening, only to realize later exactly what was actually happening. Now, I received a patient some few days after that who had a sore in the big toe. He was a diabetic, and he told me that he was running away after the bombing of the Nairobi embassy. He hit his toe against a stone, or so he thought, and he got a small ulcer and ignored it. Days later, the toe was quite sore, and he came to hospital. And when I examined him, I found that it was gangrenous. Gangrene is tissue death, and the only treatment for gangrene is cutting off the tissue that is dead. In this case, it meant cutting off his big toe. But he said no way, he was not going to have his big toe cut. I told him, if we don't cut off the toe, the gangrene is going to spread to the foot. That is the nature of gangrene. It spreads. But he refused. Now, when visiting hours came, his wife and son came, and I said, hallelujah, I found salvation. I persuaded them, I tried persuading them to tell the man to have his toe cut. But they also said, no way, they were not going to have their father's toe cut off. They refused. By and by, the gangrene spread to the foot, and I told them, we have to cut off the foot, because if we don't, it will spread. It will go to the leg. They refused. Meanwhile, I had alerted theatre because I knew the only treatment for this gangrene is to cut off, to amputate. So theatre was ready, but they refused. The gangrene, sure enough, spread to the leg. It was slowly climbing towards the knee, and I told them we have to cut off the leg below the knee to prevent any further spread of gangrene. They refused. I could not persuade them. So one day I come to work and I find the gangrene has spread above the knee. It was inching slowly towards the hip joint. And they said, now we are ready. You can cut off his leg. But meanwhile, he was so toxic, he could not go to theatre. You cannot take a toxic patient to theatre. You lose him on the theatre table. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to report that he didn't survive that night. He died. What causes gangrene? Diabetes affects the blood vessels and the nerves such that sensation goes down. When they get injured, they can hardly feel it, and probably that's why this man ignored the injury. He didn't feel so much pain, and he thought it's something that would go away. But diabetics cannot afford to have even the slightest injury. It makes the sugars go out of control. The sugars rise so high, and they can even go into a coma. They can even die, and it's not just infection in the toe. Infection anywhere, even a chest infection, even a stomach infection. You cannot afford to ignore an infection if you are diabetic. So this man ignored and lost his life. I would like to advise diabetics about foot care. Diabetics are not allowed to walk around without shoes, even in the house, because the slightest injury can translate into a diabetic ulcer. It can translate into gangrene, and you are surely going to get amputated. So let's take care of our feet. Wash your feet with warm water, not hot water, because you don't want you scalding your feet. warm water, apply some moisturizer, but not in between the toes, because if you do, you are going to give a medium for infection to grow. So please take care of your feet. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.